Welcome back. It's my pleasure to welcome to this course Professor Claire Tsai. Claire is a colleague of mine at the University of Toronto. She teaches at the Rotman School of Management, has a PhD from the University of Chicago, and does some really cool research in areas that range from overconfidence to something called hedonomics. Claire, welcome. And I see you've brought a snake here.
Oh, I brought you two trays of candy. They're the same candy except for the look. One is a snake and the other is dolphin. The snake candy is much bigger in size than the dolphin candy. Which one would you choose?
You know me, I like candy, so if you're going to give me more candy, that's what I'm going to get.
Okay, very good. Now you can eat it.
Ready?
Yes, please.
Ew. A bite of the head? Why'd you make me do that?
Well, you chose the snake candy, but you thought that you would enjoy it more.
Yeah, no, I did in fact, because I thought that the greater the candy, the more fun it would be, but it's kind of creepy to touch.
Now you lost your appetite for the candy and you're not even going to finish it.
Sorry.
So this is a very common mistake that consumers make when they make decisions about product and services. They often choose, they're not very good at choosing the product or the service that makes them most happy when they actually consume it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is by and large due to two cognitive traps. First, they're not very good at predicting their future experiences, but the second one is even worse. That is, even when they can accurately predict their liking in the future, in this case, Dale knows that he likes candy, but he didn't choose the one that would make him the most happy. He went with the snake because
it seemed larger than the other one.
Yeah, so that any rational human being in the world would think that the more candy or the more of the things that you like, the happier you will be.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it doesn't seem to be the case, and there are actually
But let me actually, since you bring this up, before we came here, we were chatting a little bit about other examples. So you were talking about a stereo system with power. Tell me about that example.
That's actually one of my favorite behavioral studies done in this area. So as we were saying earlier, our intuition behind this kind of choice mistakes that people make is that people don't always choose a product based on the factors that are most relevant to their happiness when they actually consume the product or service that they purchase. When they're making choices, when they're deciding, they tend to want to be rational. We want to make good decisions. We want to make the right decision. And we want to be rational because that seems to lead to better decisions, as most people believe. And so they will resist information factors like soft attributes, subjective experiences. They want to go with the objective, the more justifiable information. In this case, is the quantity of the snake. And in the stereo case, in the stereo study, basically what the researcher did in that study is to present an option and choice of two stereos to consumers. Okay, and one of them has greater power, but worse sound quality. And the other has lower power but richer sound. Okay, and when these two stereos are presented to consumers, people read the information about these two stereos. So stereo A has 150 watts in power, much better than the 50 watts in power for stereo B. And naturally, people. Most of the people chose stereo A exactly for that reason, because power seems to be more justifiable.
And is that because the power is in numbers, whereas the other attribute sort of seems more vague and fuzzy? Is that what it is?
Exactly. Your intuition is absolutely right. It's because the power is described using a numeric scale, and number seems to be more objective, more justifiable than a qualitative description. In this case, the sound quality is just only described as richer.
So the bias here is that as a consumer, I'm still optimizing something,
Yes.
but that thing that I'm optimizing doesn't really help me enjoy
Right.
the experience. And so these are different objectives almost. Is that fair?
That's right. When people are making choices, they don't actively think about what makes them happier when they actually consume the product. In this case, richness in sound is more relevant to people's experience in using the stereo system. And frankly speaking, except for the experts, most people cannot tell small differences in power. Okay? But when they actually listen to the music, it's not so hard for people to detect differences in sound richness.
So how would I, if I look back at this example that we just looked at, the stereo system, how could I make that bias go away?
That's a really great question. So first, we need to understand what's driving this kind of decision biases, right? So in this study, in order to really demonstrate this tendency to avoid subjective information and overvalue objective information is actually driving this cognitive biases, the research actually present a similar choice. In that case, they flip the objective information and subjective information. In that case,
so here the sound quality now is a number.
It's now described using numeric objective matrix. It's described using numbers, and in that case, people's choice again flipped. So people who are making decisions, most of them chose the one with greater power. Greater sound richness, but that didn't seem to be the case for those who are asked to choose the stereo that they will enjoy better. Okay.
So here's a question for you. So let's say I want to try and get people to choose products that I know they will enjoy. And I know, for example, that in a store people focus on the price, which is a numerical quantity, but they don't look at the visual appeal or the overall attractiveness. If I could give those attributes a score, would your research then predict that that bias would be smaller now?
Right. So that's right. So that's one way to debias this kind of decision traps. If a marketer know what's more relevant to actual consumption experience, that is, what happens to people's experiences when they actually enjoy the product at home, then they should strive to make those information, those attributes seem more objective. For example, using numeric scales to describe that attribute. But if they don't know what actually is more relevant to people, many consumers actually have insight into what factors are more relevant to their consumption experiences. Perhaps the other debiasing strategy is to focus people's attention on the enjoyment. So ask them which one would you prefer. Then people would be more likely to avoid thinking about the justification, the numbers. They would focus them more on their future experience.
So essentially you're saying nudging through either changing the question itself or nudging through putting a numerical score that gets people to focus on certain attributes. Is this hedonomics? I mean, it sounds like hedonomics is something which is hedonic plus economics. Is that what it is?
Right. Hedonomics essentially is the notion that combines the science and the science of happiness and economics.
And it's not clear to me that those two really have gone well together in the past. And you and I guess Professor Chris Shee would perhaps be the first few people working in this area. Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Claire, for being with us. And I think I learned a lot here.
Thank you for having me.